Picture this. You send a message to someone you like. Maybe it was casual. Maybe it carried more weight than you intended. You see the 2 check marks, or that little seen notification. And then, silence. Minutes stretch into hours. Your mind begins to wander. Did they get busy? Did you say something wrong? Why aren't they replying? You keep checking your phone, refreshing the chat, almost convincing yourself you felt it buzz. Then, when a reply finally comes, it's short, maybe even cold. Just a yeah, or an okay. Suddenly, this person you weren't even thinking about all that much yesterday is now at the very center of your thoughts. Their silence feels louder than their words ever did. And instead of losing interest, you find yourself drawn in deeper. This reaction isn't rare. In fact, most of us have lived it. A friend, a crush, a partner, even a colleague pulls back, and suddenly they occupy more of our headspace than before. Their absence becomes magnetic. Their silence becomes a puzzle we feel we need to solve. We replay old conversations, analyze every tone, search for hidden meaning, and the strangest part is this: the less attention they give us, the more attention we give them. So, here's the paradox. If ignoring is supposed to signal disinterest, why does it so often spark obsession? Why doesn't silence kill desire, but instead pour fuel on it? Why do we chase what withdraws? That's what we're diving into today. Because ignoring someone isn't just random behavior. It touches something deep in human psychology. Our need for validation, our fear of loss, our hunger for meaning in uncertainty. What looks like a cold shoulder is actually a powerful psychological trigger. And when you truly understand the forces at play, you'll see why indifference can sometimes be the most intoxicating attention of all. Think about the last time you felt ignored. That gnawing itch in your chest wasn't just about the person. It was about what their silence meant. We humans are wired to crave signals of acceptance, belonging, recognition. And when those signals are withheld, the mind doesn't settle down. It spins, it analyzes, it obsesses. And here's the first paradox. The harder you chase validation, the less of it you usually get. Because validation, when demanded, loses its power. It feels forced, not freely given. This is why chasing someone's attention so often pushes them further away. But when they withhold it, when they pull back, something else takes over. Let's break down the psychological engines behind this. We want what we can't have. It's an old truth, but it's alive in every human interaction. When someone ignores us, they instantly become scarce. And scarcity makes things feel valuable. Think about the last time you saw a product labeled, "Only 2 left in stock." Even if you didn't need it, you suddenly felt like maybe you should grab it. Silence works the same way. A person who isn't easily available creates the illusion of worth. Their attention, once common, now feels rare. And the rarer it feels, the more we convince ourselves it must matter. The brain doesn't just crave reward, it craves the possibility of reward. This is why slot machines are so addictive. You pull the lever. Sometimes you win, sometimes you don't. The unpredictability is what keeps you hooked. When someone ignores us, we enter the same cycle. Maybe tomorrow they'll respond warmly. Maybe they won't. That uncertainty creates a dopamine loop. Our mind keeps checking, refreshing, hoping, and each little sign, a like, a delayed reply, a sudden reappearance, feels like a jackpot. Ignoring isn't just absence, it's a variable reward system, and those are the hardest to break. Here's where it gets even trickier. When someone goes silent, we don't just wait. We start filling in the gaps ourselves. We project. Imagine this. You text a friend and they don't reply. One part of your mind says, they're probably busy. Another part whispers, maybe they don't care anymore. That uncertainty becomes a canvas, and we start painting it with our own fears, desires, and insecurities. Ignoring leaves space, and in that space, we project fantasies or nightmares. We imagine they're more mysterious, more important, more powerful than they really are. In reality, they might just be cooking dinner, but in our mind, their silence becomes loaded with meaning. The way we react to being ignored often has deep roots. Attachment theory shows us that early childhood experiences shape how we handle closeness and distance. For someone with an anxious attachment style, silence can feel unbearable. It echoes that childhood fear of being abandoned. Suddenly, not getting a reply isn't just about this moment. It's about every past wound of feeling unwanted. This is why obsession grows, because the stakes feel bigger than they really are. It's not just one person's silence, it's the echo of every silence you've ever felt. On the other side, people with avoidant attachment might ignore others because distance feels safer. They may not mean to create obsession, but their pullback often triggers it in others. So the dance of ignoring and obsessing isn't random. It's rooted in attachment dynamics that have been playing out since childhood. At the extreme end lies something darker: trauma bonding. This happens when cycles of affection and withdrawal create a powerful, almost addictive tie. Think of someone who showers you with attention, then suddenly disappears. The withdrawal hurts, but when they return, the relief feels euphoric. Over time, your brain gets hooked on the cycle itself. Pain followed by relief, absence followed by presence. It's the same dynamic that keeps people stuck in toxic relationships. Ignoring doesn't just create curiosity here, it forges a bond through repetition of hurt and reward. So, when someone ignores you, and you find yourself obsessing, it isn't because you're weak or foolish. It's because these forces, scarcity, dopamine, projection, attachment, trauma bonds, are powerful psychological levers. They turn silence into something that doesn't just feel like nothing. It feels like everything. And the truth is, understanding these forces is the first step in breaking free from them. Because once you see the machinery behind the obsession, you start to realize their silence isn't power. It's just psychology at work. So far, we've seen why silence and withdrawal can spark obsession. But let's step beyond psychology and look at the deeper philosophies that have wrestled with these same dynamics for centuries. Because long before modern neuroscience spoke of dopamine loops, philosophers were exploring the power of detachment, silence, and inner sovereignty. The Stoics understood this well. For them, freedom was not found in controlling others, but in controlling the self. Epictetus famously said, "We cannot control what others do, only how we respond." If someone ignores us, the Stoic would not see it as a wound, but as a chance to practice self-rule. Their silence is their action. Your reaction is yours. To crave another's attention, in Stoic terms, is to hand over your peace of mind to someone else's whims. True strength lies in keeping your center, even when others pull away. Buddhism offers another angle. At the heart of Buddhist teaching is non-attachment. Clinging creates suffering. When someone ignores us, our instinct is to cling harder, to chase, to demand, to grasp. But the Buddha warned, this grasping is the root of our pain. Letting go, on the other hand, creates freedom. Imagine someone stepping back, and instead of spiraling into obsession, you breathe. You notice the craving rise, and then you release it. And in that release, you discover a power far greater than making someone obsessed with you. The power to not be obsessed yourself. Nietzsche, ever provocative, took it even further. He spoke about the will to power, not as domination over others, but as mastery of one's own being. To ignore or to detach from someone out of indifference, not manipulation, could be seen as an expression of strength. It signals that your life, your projects, your values are too full to be consumed by another's attention games. Think of Nietzsche's Übermensch, the one who creates his own values, instead of being enslaved by the herd. In this light, silence can be defiance, but also creation. It says, I refuse to be reactive. I choose to live by my own rhythm. And then there's Jung, who would remind us that the person who obsesses when ignored is not only reacting to the other, but also to the shadow within. Ignoring stirs projection. We don't see the other as they truly are. We see the figure we've cast them into. Jung would say, obsession born from silence is a mirror, showing us the parts of ourselves we have not yet integrated. If someone's withdrawal devastates you, perhaps it's pointing to your own unresolved wounds, to the pieces of your psyche still crying for recognition. To face that shadow is to grow, not to manipulate. History gives us examples of these ideas in action. Marcus Aurelius, the Stoic emperor, was surrounded by politics, betrayal, and voices constantly demanding his attention. His meditations reveal a man who practiced silence not as a tactic, but as survival, a way to keep his soul intact in the noise of empire. Or take Siddhartha, who walked away from a palace of endless stimulation to sit in silence beneath a tree until he found truth within. Even in modern times, leaders and thinkers who held their ground in silence often grew in influence, not because they schemed, but because their detachment revealed a rare inner strength. And here lies the key distinction. Ignoring someone just to make them obsessed is manipulation. It reduces human connection to a shallow game of push and pull. But ignoring, when born from self-mastery, is not about the other at all. It's about reclaiming sovereignty over your own attention. It says, I choose not to give my energy to what drains me. I choose not to dance to every demand. I choose to belong to myself first. When silence comes from that place, it stops being a trick. It stops being a weapon. It becomes an act of freedom. And in a world that constantly pulls us to react, to respond, to perform, the courage to remain sovereign is one of the rarest and most magnetic strengths of all. So, what have we really uncovered here? Ignoring doesn't create obsession because silence itself is magical. It creates obsession because silence forces people to confront their own wounds. It pulls their fears of abandonment to the surface. It leaves a blank space, that the mind rushes to fill with projection and fantasy. It taps into scarcity, into the uncertainty of dopamine, into the old patterns of attachment. In other words, the power is not in the one who ignores, but in the unresolved layers within the one who craves. And yet, there is something deeper. To ignore from a place of sovereignty is not about manipulation. It's not about playing games or keeping someone on edge. The true strength of silence lies in what it reveals about you. That you are not a prisoner to every demand for your attention. That your peace is not for sale. That your value is not measured by constant response. When your silence is chosen, not weaponized, it becomes an act of freedom. This is the paradigm shift. The goal is not to make others obsessed with you. That only keeps you tied to their reactions, still chasing validation in a different form. The real power is in stepping out of the cycle completely, to no longer need their attention to feel whole, to let go of the anxious checking, the endless refreshing, the hope for a reply that defines your worth. Because the moment you no longer need it is the moment you are free. So, the next time you feel the pull of silence, pause. Instead of asking, "How do I get them to notice me?" ask, "What is this teaching me about myself?" That question turns the game inside out. It transforms ignoring from a tactic into a mirror, and the obsession into an invitation to grow. In the end, sovereignty is the most magnetic quality of all, not the silence that manipulates, but the silence that says, "I belong to myself." And maybe that's the secret. The less you need someone to see you, the more your presence speaks for itself. And maybe that's the secret. The less you need someone to see you, the more your presence speaks for itself.